It doesn't look like it, because with the Labor Party firmly against it, the Greens firmly against it, even when we change over, when the Palmer United Party is going to play a pivotal role on the crossbench, Clive Palmer himself has made it pretty clear that he, and presumably that means his senators in the chamber, don't support the idea of giving government assistance to Qantas. In his own colourful way, Clive Palmer, in speaking from the Gold Coast today, not from Canberra but from the Gold Coast, made it clear that he didn't think there was a problem with Qantas at all, and he thought that the government and the opposition and everyone else was having the wool pulled over their eyes.
Qantas is not in a bad financial position. It's got substantial assets, and it could be dealt with in a good way. If I was the CEO of Qantas, I'd fix it up, no worries.
So you don't think it needs a capital investment? You think it's all about sending jobs overseas?
Well, it's all about bullshit, really, to get the media going, you know, to distract you from what the reality of it is, and they're not going to fool me.
Clive Palmer there. So that leaves things at a bit of a stalemate. The government determined that it's not the right time to offer a debt guarantee, and that the ownership restrictions is the thing that needs to be changed. Labor saying they won't abide by it. Same with Clive Palmer. So unless someone blinks and offers an alternative, at the moment there's not going to be any extra assistance for Qantas.
All right, our political reporter in Canberra, Melissa Clark, thank you. Independent investment analyst Roger Montgomery. Roger Montgomery, if foreign ownership restrictions are lifted, who'd be interested in buying a bigger stake in Qantas?
Well, no one with any rational expectation of making money over the long term. It's obviously would be international airlines that would like to have a hub in Australia. But the reality is airlines don't make a great deal of money either in aggregate or individually. And so while we're arguing over whether or not Qantas should be foreign owned, whether or not there should be a debt guarantee, the real issue is that these businesses are struggling to make money, and while they're struggling to make money, there will always be difficulty for these industries and these businesses to employ lots of people, so the government needs to do something else to encourage industries that are more profitable in Australia to start up.
Just before the global financial crisis, a US-based private equity firm was interested in Qantas. That deal, luckily for the firm, collapsed before the global financial crisis. Is it that sort of entity, private equity firm, that might be interested?
Well, it's certainly possible. The problem with airlines in Australia and elsewhere in the world is that they take very large amounts of capital and they generate very low rates of return because they're incredibly capital intensive businesses. And so they're not going to make much money for their owners, irrespective of who owns them. And it really doesn't matter who's rowing that boat. The boat has a hole in the side of it, and it's going to forever be leaking, and it'll need to be bailed out. The bigger issue is if we have foreign ownership of our airlines, the bigger issue is the impact on our tourism industry.
What do you think that impact would be? Because are you suggesting that if a foreign owner was in place, that they might look at non-economic routes and just say, well, we've got to cut that if the bottom line is always money?
Oh, of course they would. You know, they'd be most interested in the frequent flyer program, which is the jewel in the crown for this business. This is the business that generates all the cash. And look, quite frankly, I believe that the international business doesn't make any money. Virgin lost money. We know that Jetstar has lost money, and I don't quite know when I look at the accounts how Qantas claims that the domestic business is profitable. I don't think they're actually profitable, and even if they do report profits, believe it or not, the accounting standards allow the company to write an expense on the profit and loss statement that doesn't really account for the true cost of owning all those planes.
Given your concerns then about the impact on the tourism industry that you just mentioned, if there was some sort of foreign ownership restriction lifted, should the rules change, should we still be asking for some sort of guarantee from those new owners about things like that?
I don't believe that we should restrict investment in Australian businesses, but I do believe that as a nation we should have a say about how those businesses are run if foreigners want to buy our businesses. The arguments that you're hearing on both sides of politics at the moment are binary, they're black and white. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground. We're either not going to sell it or we are going to sell it, we're not going to provide a guarantee or we are going to provide a guarantee. There's no question or no discussion about the price of that guarantee, what's the appropriate price, and there's no discussion about, okay, well, if we do have foreign ownership, what are the restrictions or what are the conditions we would put in place if a foreign owner were to operate that business in Australia? But you know what this tells me more than anything else? The discussion that we're hearing in Parliament today just tells me that successive governments have not planned for this in the future. When industries are putting their hands out and asking for additional money over many, many years, which the airline industry and the car manufacturing industry has been doing in Australia, no one sat up, no one took notice and said, you know what, we need to plan for this, we need to provide an environment for other businesses to take all the people that inevitably will be sacked.
Roger Montgomery, always interesting to talk to you. Thanks for joining us from Perth today.
It's a pleasure.